Okay, so second part of printing our toy block. This is the toy block that Kevin produced, but you might notice it's got the text on there. Well, we're going to print the text. And if you remember, I embossed the text, or I extruded the text about 0.2 millimeters in, which is not very much, but it's going to be plenty for what we're going to do. So I got the file. I'm going to open up my Prusa. And the file I created was toy block with text. I'm going to drag that on here. And that's a Lego size text, or Lego size block. What we want to do is we want to blow that thing up. So we're going to triple it. And we're going to use the scale factors down here. And there's a little lock right here. If I click the lock, I can change one dimension, but not all of them. So if I click, I'm going to make this 300%, or 300. Now I only change the X. That warps things. In that case, I don't want that. So I'm going to click the lock, and I'm going to make everything 300%. So that made my block that was previously about 30 millimeters about 95 millimeters, which is pretty good size. Okay, so there's my block. Now if I slice it, sliced, and there we go. It's going to give me a print stability issue. What does that mean? It means that the printer is trying to print an error. I'm going to give it a command to print an error, and it's going to be really, really ugly. Now, the text is not such a big deal, but what is a big deal is the bottom of the block. All this is going to be a big mess. It's going to try to print an error, and it's not going to work. So what we need to do is add supports, just like in our previous unit. We're going to click back to our work area, print settings, find support material, and click generate support material. And I'm going to click slice, and it's going to throw a whole bunch of support material at our block. Here and here, it's going to be a mess. Okay, so we know that our printer is capable of doing a couple millimeters, so we're only asking it to overhang or print an error about 0.6 of a millimeter. If you remember, I extruded 0.2 millimeters. 3 times that, I tripled it, about 0.6. Our 3D printers can handle that. So I don't want to deal with all this extra material here. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to go back to my print settings. And I'm going to unclick auto-generated supports. Now I still want to generate support material, but I don't want the computer to do it all. So if I click slice now, the computer's like, well, you told me to do support material, but I don't know where to put it. So we're going to tell it where to put it. Go back to our work area. And we're going to do paint on supports. Now notice with the interface for the paint on supports, a left click adds supports, a right click blocks out supports, meaning don't put supports here, and a shift and any click will remove, basically clean up the interface. So I'm going to use my left click, and I'm going to say, I'm going to need some supports right there, I'm going to need supports over here, and supports over here. Now when I click slice, I've added supports right there to support those areas, not over here, for purposes of time. You're going to want to support those areas too. Okay. So when you do paint on supports, you tell it, I only want supports in those areas. I don't care about the supports everywhere else. I know you think I need supports there, but I don't want to put supports there. Okay. And I click slice, and now I got my supports. Notice it did not put supports at the text. All right, so let's talk more about supports. There's lots of different types of supports. The default support is this grid right here. If you want to change the amount of supports or the type of supports, you can come over here and you can go to print settings, support material, and you can change the style from grid to organic. Organic makes these crazy columns. And then we'll go back to our platter and we'll slice, and it's going to make these crazy columns that come up and just touch the model where they need to be touched. All right, up there. I have no preference. Organic material, organic supports is pretty new, but you can give it a shot. Okay. Another thing you can do, this is also a little bit of experimental, is you can go ahead and remove all of your paints and then do an automatic painting. This is basically the computer saying, I think we're going to need supports there. Then when you slice, you're going to get your supports where the computer thinks they're going to need supports. That's kind of it's experimental, but it's what the computer thinks is going to work. Give it a try if you want. Okay. Now that we got our supports, we can export our file and print it up, and we're going to have a pretty good sized block that's about just under 100 millimeters long. And that we're going to add to our wall. All right, great.